Welcome to Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. I'm Bill Tilley.
And I'm Rob Schulte. Rob Schulte. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Rob. Be careful with that. You know, there's a limit on how many times you can say names in certain places.
Okay, so everyone knows this week we're talking Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh. We'll talk more detail in a second, but like the biggest thing that comes to my mind, Bill, is 5 times. That is too many times for a movie.
That seems like a lot of work to cause and effect. Beetlejuice was only 3.
And so is, I think, the Bloody Mary lore that I think this is all built off of, right? Like,
yeah. Why the extra work? Did they ever explain that?
Like, it doesn't really heighten the tension in the moments when people are saying Candyman in the movie. It's just like, can we get it over with now? Is he going to say it 5 times, or is someone going to cut him off? What's going on here?
Did they put built-in filler into this movie? Is that what that is? Or is it just, maybe it's one of those things like when you're doing a game or you're going through some kind of thing on the computer and it eventually asks you, like, you go to delete the file and it says, are you sure? Maybe that 4th and 5th Candyman are like, are you sure that you really want to summon this demon up into yourself?
Are you really sure? That's right before 5.
Is the situation you're in, does it warrant a Candyman? Think twice before you proceed.
And when you're going to like sass someone about believing in Candyman when you don't believe in Candyman, do you really like want to like draw it out for so long?
No, I don't think you do. And I think if we were in the situation where, say, we're in the big room and I'm the one doing it and you're watching it, would it be like 5 times? You know, if you got 1, 2, that's a quick one to be like, uh-oh, he's really serious. Or is it like, oh, come on, man. You're only on number 3. You're dragging this out. You know you're not going to do it. Yeah. I know. Let's just move on.
Ugh. Well, we'll talk about some more Candyman here soon. But Bill, I have to tell you, you're a Stephen J. Cannell fan, right?
Oh, very much so. I've lived a bulk of my life in the Cannellverse, it seems like.
Well, I don't realize, like, there's so many that have, like, come into my purview in the recent years of my life that his programs were not on television for me growing up. They were on TV, but they were not on in my household.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting to see the varied attempts at successful television shows and how similar yet how different they are. Because recently I started watching a show called Silk Stockings, which I remember being on TV. Mm-hmm. I remember it being very horny because it's called Silk Stockings.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know it was like Melrose Place horny. You know, it's not going to get too graphic. It's just going to be very suggested language.
Yeah, it was part of the CBS late night crime dramas when it first came out. And I remember watching it too and going, this show is basically true to its title. It's not a lot of sexy things happening all the time. It's just a lot of people get murdered in their underwear on that show.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of bathing suits.
A lot of frilly negligees and, you know, bare-chested men and silk shirts with no buttons.
Yeah.
Walking around their Bel Air apartments.
It is weird because, like, also sometimes the men on these shows are like, let's just say the scale to attractiveness between, like, say, the women and the men, it's I'm just gonna put it out there. There was a guy out not in the same ballpark in a hot tub, and he had like hair all like very it was very much like, whose friend is this that got this part in this movie?
You got to remember too, Rob, you're talking the 90s. We're not completely out of the Tom Selleck level of hair.
That's true. And I am very much like, everyone has their own standard of beauty. Yeah. Who am I to...
Yeah. This show was marketed subtly as like Miami Vice for the 90s.
Yes.
And you see where they're going. I liked the show. I watched it almost all the way through, pretty
I'm
much
enjoying
every
it
episode.
very much.
It's great. It's like if Baywatch Nights had a sibling show that went to an Ivy League school where Baywatch
Mm.
went to like a very small backwater car repair shop and accreditation service. Something like that.
Yeah,
But they're great. They're great. Steve Cannell made so many great shows because his shows were interesting to watch. He knew what worked. You put some interesting and or beautiful people in them. They drive nice cars. They do things in fabulous places, and that was great television.
and I love like how propaganda this show is, and I I mean like there's just certain TV shows that are like, isn't being a cop cool, right? Like that's just what it is, and this one is like, these are the two coolest motherfuckers you will ever meet, and they just happen to also be cops. They
Yeah,
live in really cool houses. They dress very cool.
yeah. They do a thing that Rob Estes and Mitzi Capture. There are actors that portray their parts in a way that only a Beverly Hills or
Palm Beach.
Palm Beach or city of equivalent size and per
Yeah.
capita would be able to afford. Because even the people on it, when they die, like they die beautifully.
Oh yeah,
Like
that's one of the weird things is like people commenting on how hot someone is that's dead.
I know, I know. It's like if Quincy was like a lech. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's kind of great. I miss it.
And the last thing I'll say, because we got to talk some Candyman,
Yeah.
is the architecture and the
Oh,
lighting.
yeah.
Like Mitzi's, I forget her character's name, but well, they call each other Sam, right? that's what it is.
Yeah.
But Mitzi Capture's apartment is like, there's a spiral staircase that has no railing, and it's made what seems to be out of like porcelain, and there's a black and white checkered floor underneath it, and it doesn't matter if you're in her apartment or anyone else's building, every light shining in through the window is bright pink.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's very much the last gasp of the color palette that stems all the way back from Star Trek all the way up through Miami Vice. It's
And
kind of great. And I enjoy it because these were the days when you could see what was going on. It's not all shot in the dark like a lot of things are today.
yes, Chris and Rita.
Chris and Rita.
But they eat the. I must have missed the one line of dialogue of why they call each other Sam.
Yeah,
But
that's their cute little thing that they do because that's one of those shows that it's not that they skip the will they won't they, which is just one of those things they do when you've got back then when you had a male and female partner doing anything
yeah,
or a pair, the whole rough and rumble thing. It's just it's just like you already know it's going to be probably just a question of when. That's
yeah.
just
I
how
mean,
the
they
show
have they
rolls.
flat out say it. The moment we're not partners, I'll race you to the motel.
It's like the cop equivalent of, well, if we're not married in 10 years when we're both 40.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, you know what, Bill? Maybe we should do some silk shorts later on in the feed for all the patrons.
You mean title, and we don't have to wear them while we talk about it,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I'll bust out the Umbros.
It's not that kind of Patreon, folks.
No, it's not. No. It is not. But Bill, this week we are talking about Candyman: Farewell to the Flesh from 1995, which is the second Candyman movie ever made. Some say the best. I've yet to hear some say that, but I'm guessing. I'm guessing that's what they say.
There's always got to be somebody somewhere who's saying it. You just have to believe that.
You know, if you can think it, it's probably been said. This is 1995, so as we read the back of the box, this is like deep VHS time. So they're cramming as much as possible onto these boxes, especially when it's a major motion picture, which I'm not sure if this, I think it was in theaters.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Maybe not the third one, but it is, this was a big sequel. It didn't. necessarily live up to the hype, but people
No,
wanted it.
no, but this really was the time where you would really have to tank your second sequel to
Yeah.
go direct to video.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and I don't think this one did that.
And I will say, the newest Candyman that came out a couple years ago, as of this recording, was great.
Well,
And
that's cool. This is my first look at any of these movies, so I'm
oh
starting out with
wow,
a sequel that
wow.
you
Okay,
picked.
well, Bill, I highly suggest, and maybe I'll change my mind by the time we get to the end of this recording, but I really like the first one. I think it's great. We'll get into that a little more later. How about I read this back of the box?
I think you should read, 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 read,
Read.
read the back of that box, Robs.
Clive Barker's atmospheric tale of nerve-shredding terror continues as the original Candyman, Tony Todd, takes up where he left off in a film hailed by critics as blood-curdling and richer and scarier than the original. The legend and the horror began a century ago when the Candyman was mutilated by an angry crowd and stung to death by bees. Now, in the midst of New Orleans' wild Mardi Gras celebration, he is back, a hook for a hand to destroy the descendants of those who destroyed him. And this time, there will be hell to pay. For Annie Tarrant, a New Orleans school teacher, the Candyman is more than a legend whispered by her pupils. Years ago, her father was gruesomely murdered, and rumors said that he was killed by the Candyman. She shrugs off the gossip until she hears a voice calling her to be my victim. Her past just caught up with her future as the Candyman unleashes his fury on a new generation. Their darkest nightmare is waiting just behind the surface of the nearest mirror. All they have to do is repeat his name: Candyman, 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 Candyman.
No, Rob, don't do it.
Okay, I won't. Luckily, the VHS tape gives us an ellipses, and at first I thought, were they being clever in not writing it a fourth time or a fifth time? And then I realized, no, they just ran out of room because this is one of the longer back of the boxes.
Yeah, this is the back of the box. It's the equivalent of the modern movie trailer that's like 4.5 minutes long and gives you far too much of the movie. But I'll give them credit. The best back of the box doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It just gives you a very detailed setup, which, as somebody who had no knowledge of this movie beforehand or its predecessor, I did appreciate.
Yeah. On that note, Bill, I just recently visited my hometown and came home with a briefcase full of VHS tapes of what I have taped off the TV. About a quarter of them don't work anymore, but I think that's because you remember when you used to be able to like set the different record speeds on VHS? Well, I think I was trying to max out some of those tapes with like Seinfeld and Simpsons syndication recordings, and they just they don't play back in the same way that they recorded.
Yeah, they can. And they can also get moldy and they can go bad.
Luckily, not too much of that. But one thing I will say, just on your topic of the long movie trailer, there's also the trailer that has to like explain to you stuff. And luckily, we didn't get that from this. But in that vein, I have seen multiple trailers for the movie Failure to Launch on these VHS tapes. And that was when people I guess they didn't think people knew what failure to launch meant as like Arrested Development. This person's staying at home too long. And Matthew McConaughey, it's like, all these things of him being not growing up and being at his parents' house in his 40s or something. And they're like, when you don't move out of the house, that's failure to launch. It's like, okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated it a little bit then because that was not a term I was completely familiar with. But I got it once you saw the trailer for that movie. I'm like, oh, he just is just hanging out in the basement with his folks. He's got the sweet, sweet ride, man. Why should he change?
Yeah.
So, I'm like,
but also maybe just title it something else.
But then again, that was movie trailer guy's job. If he really needed to do it, he was there for us. So
Well, it's just like the term bucket list was not a phrase until the movie Bucket List. So maybe failure to launch wasn't a phrase until failure to launch.
Once again, proving how all of film and television just shapes the path of human history in the most important ways.
Of course, when you haven't moved out of your house and are podcasting with your best bud, that's called failure to pod or successful pod, whatever. Bill, before we go through our patented segments, which I have, don't worry, more clever titles for, like last episode, is there any lingering Candyman questions that like maybe didn't get resolved by not seeing the first one?
No, there's no questions. Even though I hadn't seen the first movie, I'd heard of it. I'd heard you talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I understood
Uh-huh.
what I was going to get, and that's not what I got, which I'm not going to say is good or bad right now.
Sure.
But the movie explained itself along the way for me in its own way. So no real questions at all. Just before we get started, just in case anything like skips or our needle gets stuck, I've gone ahead and removed all the mirrors from the
Yeah.
podcast studio. So
I only have like a reflective book, but that
there's
should
a
be fine.
thought. Could you weaponize the Candyman like we're doing right now? Could I get you to leave the room, and then if I
Ooh.
say it through your speaker, would he show up in your house?
Whoa. Listeners, what do you think? Let us know in the comments.
Please do.
One thing I will say going through this, Bill, is that I think should be addressed up top. The first Candyman movie had much more social commentary, I think, than this one. And in watching this movie,
Listeners, Rob's just
Yeah.
looked over his shoulder at a strange noise
yeah,
in the studio.
I
guarantee you, this is not going to be the last time that happens to one of us.
Things go bump in the night during Robo-ween. But that is something that is an element to these films that I think when you don't do it as well as the one prior, that's like a whole point that the movie was based on. And you really kind of struggles, I think, is a good way to put it here. But well, more on that later, and you'll know what I talk about if you've seen the first one. But Bill, we should get to our first segment that I'm calling Smarties. Because this is where we're going to just talk some fun facts about this film. Would you like to start?
I would. And everybody, Rob's making me so happy by changing these titles around again. He knows I love this stuff. Yeah. So I looked into this movie a little bit, and one of the first things I found that was a little surprising was the writer director of the first movie, Bernard Rose. He wanted to write a sequel, which you usually see that with a lot of movies that do pretty well, especially like I think lower budget movies, more like in this vein, because they'll want that director back or that writer, and it's usually not that much money at this stage, so it's worth it. And so he wrote a sequel, and the studio hated it. They just flat hated it. He wanted to write a movie that was more about other urban legends, like in his view, the Candyman had, spoilers I guess, expired in the first movie, and so he's like, well, why don't we just make it like an anthology, and the Candyman is Jack the Ripper this time, and who would that possibly be, and how could that myth, like what really could have happened to cause this myth to happen, which was, I think, pretty interesting. But the studio decided, nah, we just want more of Tony Todd with a hook hand taking people apart straight up the middle. And I just thought, wow, classic Hollywood decision of, you hired this person to write a movie for you and direct it, and they did, and it was successful. And your first instinct when they come to you with the next idea is to immediately reject it and say you know better. So that was kind of a bummer. Classic move. Terrible thing to keep doing to everybody. Bad studio.
Totally. I will just say that within this movie, Octavia Tarrant, the mother who's sick and yells a lot, refers to her physician, Dr. Loomis, which is obviously a reference to Donald Pleasant's character in Halloween, in that franchise. And I have to think, Bill, does that just mean that Candyman is in and Halloween are in the same universe?
He is if you want it to be. I mean, if you're going to do horror mashups, could you have a much better one than a Candyman and a serial killer based around the
Thank
Halloween
you.
holiday? Come
Thank
on.
you.
Come on.
Candyman on Halloween. Sweets for
Please.
the sweets.
Seriously. I mean, it kind of writes itself in a
Yeah.
way. So yeah, I didn't catch that. So I'm glad you brought it up. That's funny. That makes me want to go back and find it because I do know who Dr. Loomis is, but that would have missed it the
And then
first time.
Skeet Ulrich's character in Scream, which comes out a year after this movie, Billy Loomis.
I mean,
So,
I think that's one of the marks of the great fraternity of horror movies that they're
uh-huh.
all such fans of the genre. They love to give shout outs and Easter
Yeah.
eggs in their own stuff to other movies, which I find endearing when you do it like this. I think it's cool because it's not that so much in your face. It's that,
Yeah.
that was
It's not
fun.
a Wilhelm scream. Right.
No, it is not. Thank God.
Well, what's your other smarty?
So I found an interview with Tony Todd about
Ooh.
his role in this movie. And this is another one of those movies where I'm always shocked when I think, well, this is a name and a franchise and things. And we go on a search for fun facts or interesting things. We don't just go to IMDb and repeat. And this was hard. It was hard to find anything on
Yeah.
this one specific. The first one, there seems to be a lot of stuff, but at least in this one, Tony said that he was insistent that this movie shows scenes of Daniel's, the Candyman's former life, so that people could see that he had skills. He was a shoesmith and he's a painter. And he's this guy who had all these skills and things going, but he fell in love with a woman that society would not let him have. And he's like, this movie is a gothic love story, is what he called it, of unrequited love. And it's not just a horror movie. And after hearing that, that really made a lot of things make sense for me in the viewing of this movie because
Mm-hmm.
short version, which we'll get onto later, is that I didn't see this so much as a horror movie I thought it would be, and I kept wondering, what is it? And as I'm watching, like, this movie's trying to say something,
Yes.
and it was a little lost on me the first time around because I went in with horror movie prejudice, thinking
Sure.
I knew what I was going to get, and I didn't. So I like that he added this extra layer now in hindsight, and I could see it's there because it makes the character not a cardboard cutout. Because honestly, any being with hook hand can kill, but that's not interesting to watch. So I love that Tony Todd tried to inject the backstory of this character everywhere he went and made it more than just a slasher fic.
Yeah, I like that too. And it goes into something I'll say a little bit later. But Bill, I just want to remind you one thing that I meant to say earlier. In the first movie, stars Virginia Madsen. So if that helps you at all to watch it.
It definitely does, because I kept seeing these things and trying to find research about Virginia Madsen talks about this. I'm like, why do they keep asking Virginia Madsen about this movie? Never once putting together in my sleep addled brain that maybe she was in the first movie and you should watch it, Bill.
Yeah. Well, it maybe as a bonus episode if the listeners ring the bell and want us to.
Or would you like a series, Mad About Madsen, where we just watch Virginia
Ooh,
Madsen movies?
I want that.
I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah. And I think just to Mr. Todd's point, that would have rang so much better, or this movie would have been so much better if it was like jumping back and forth between old timey flashbacks and current day. But as it's paced and plotted right now, not so much. But my last smarty is that Timothy Carhart is in this movie. Who
Yes.
I'm just going to say I always think is Fisher Stevens until I remember that Fisher Stevens is a completely different human being. But they're both, but they are both that guys, right?
For
Like,
sure.
and plus, Timothy Carhart, Tony Todd, this is like a whole next generation reunion. I bet you they were talking about their episodes when the cameras were off and they were eating crafty.
You'd like to think that's the case. You really would.
Yeah. Oh, well, Bill, should we move on to our next segment?
Absolutely. What's this one called, Robs?
Sweet treats. I gotta say, Smarties are fun facts. Sweet treats, we all like a nice sweet treat, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these are just simple likes. We already said that this movie's a little complicated. I'll get us started. Bill, I love the setting of New Orleans, especially for horror movies, right? It invokes ghosts. It's like a haunted city. I think people say that, right? There's lore, there's old stuff. There's old stuff. But just like the architecture with the moss, with the carnival happening, like all of it is just a fun setting for a movie, especially a horror movie. And we touched on it before, like the lore of Candyman is entertaining, but it didn't have to take place in New Orleans for this movie,
Right.
especially since the first one took place in Chicago. So it's a bit of a stretch when they say, like, the only thing that ties it to New Orleans is the story they make up about Candyman's backstory, and then they like retrofit it to New Orleans. But like, then
Mm-hmm.
why does he show up in Chicago in the first one? Like
Right.
it's a little like it's a bit forced, but this is the likes, and I like New Orleans as a setting for the lore development.
It is. It's a great city to do something like this in. Of course, it's got all the background and colors, like you said. So, totally see where you're coming from for that one, Rob. So, one of the things I liked about this movie is the mother of Annie Tennant. The character is played by Veronica Cartwright.
Yes.
She plays Octavia Tennant, her mother, and you know her when you see her. And in my book, nobody does the suffering face like Veronica Cartwright. She's been blown apart in so many sci-fi movies. She seems like she's destined for death in nearly everything that she works on. It's just crazy, but she has a way about her when she's talking about the fact that she's been diagnosed with cancer and she's drinking
Mm-hmm.
her sorrows away, and her husband's been murdered, and there's like this weird curse that seems to be following her family. But everything she does when she's always on screen, she's got that mom vibe of, oh, if these
Yes.
kids would just listen to me and stop poking around in these problems. But her face is just, she's a beautiful woman, and she has this combination of eye roll, which because she's got these big doe eyes and this
Yep.
expressiveness that just comes through the screen, and it's almost like you can feel her resonate inside you when she does it. I think she's just great in this role, and when she switches it to the other direction and she's either indifferent or she picks a weird moment in like the police station after something's happened with her son's been arrested, to try and get her daughter and her husband to hook up and give her grandchildren. Like, she uses this to pivot into, well, if I ever have grandchildren someday, like, your son's been arrested for murder,
Uh-huh.
and yet you can multitask your guilt in two different directions to
Yeah.
cause this to come out and still kind of look charming when you do it. So she's great. She's absolutely great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And on that same token, Tony Todd just always has that character, has that face, has that acting ability, has that voice.
Oh,
Everything you said about Veronica Cartwright can be said about Tony Todd, but for Tony Todd, right? Like, they each like just
absolutely.
embody these characters. It's great.
Yeah. Tony Todd is, He's just this force. He's so amazing. He's got such a presence. I mean, it does not matter what he does. You have to watch it. You just
Yeah.
have to. It's crazy.
And his old Jake Sisko is
Ugh.
one of the best performances next to Candyman.
True, and I'm sure he would put Kern up there as Worf's brother if he could remember
Kern,
being
how
Kern.
could I forget? You know.
Well, Kern forgot, so I guess the rest of us can too.
Hmm. Well, Bill, do you have any last sweet treats before we take a turn?
Yeah, I'm gonna cut to the end of this movie, and not a real big shocker that a horror movie has a villain's comeuppance scene, and this movie's it's got a lot of special effects in it. It's of its mid '90s time, but a lot of them are practical. I've read about that with the whole bees and the stuff breaking through walls. You can see that there is some model work and some CG, but the end battle where the Candyman meets his fate, he suffers a mid '90s CGI death scene that is 100% bonkers. It
Yes.
makes next to no sense. I'm watching this and I'm thinking, did I accidentally hit the button and turn on the Lawnmower Man? Because
Oh, yes.
he does some, like, he's a creature of the mirror, almost like I thought of him as like a dream
Uh
type
huh.
villain. So you're expecting a whirlwind to take him away or flames and all this kind of stuff. But no, he kind of goes like Emma Frost style, frozen diamond shape, and then just starts to do the whole disintegrate into pieces of meat type of thing as if
Mm-hmm.
he'd been shot out an airlock. It is so weird and it's so terrible. It's just like
It's a bit much.
they saved their budget, I think, for the end, and then got to the end and went, this ain't gonna be enough. What can we get?
Yeah.
And they like, well, we've got these old skins left over from like this video game that we made a couple of years ago. Like, we'll just go with that. It it jumps out of nowhere in a movie that didn't have a lot of that stuff, and it just kind of I can't say that I liked it because it was good. I liked it because it was nuts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 That
it's
is exactly the reason to watch
yeah,
it and to
it
experience it and know that this is solidly 1995.
yeah. Do not fast forward to the end of this movie for it. Get there like
Yeah.
we did and
Get there
enjoy it.
naturally.
Absolutely.
It'll hit different if you fast forward. Well, Bill, we should move on to artificial sweeteners, saccharin, if you will.
Uh,
Maybe some things we don't like as much. Some might even say dislike. Would you like to start us off?
sure. I'll be the some that says he dislikes some stuff,
Yeah.
which he did. So my first real big dislike is the music in this movie. Now, I've seen things where people are very appreciative and very much like the score in this movie. There are some fans apparently of it out there. I found it to sound like weird carnival horror music,
Yep.
and it's always on. It's another one of those instances where it feels like the people that made the movie said, well, you got to have the music to tell you how to feel all the time.
Uh huh.
And it just won't stop, and it overpowers every scene. And because it's this weird carnival, scary sounding plinky plunky music in the background, it throws everything in your brain into that vibe, even when it's not scary. Like a normal scene where they're just going to a place or doing a thing will have this movie. And they don't need to tell me to be scared all the time. And with that no shift in anything, it just really killed the tension for most of this movie for me, because now I'm just kind of sitting there going, I get it. This is what you want. I know it's coming, but it can't be her just walking down the street and looking at flyers, or where she goes to, even when she goes to school, you've got this thing, like I keep thinking, is he going to jump out of the kid's painting and kill somebody? And then when it doesn't happen, I was kind of disappointed, and I lay a lot of that squarely at the feet of the music, because it's leading me down a path that the movie does not go.
Yeah. Apparently, Philip Glass did both. I haven't looked at the third one, but he did the first one and the second one. The music is so much more compelling a part of the movie in the first one than in this one. Like, this does not feel like a Philip Glass score. You know what it feels like? It feels like some people had leftover music from what Philip Glass had done for the score in the first one, were able to change it for this one as long as it still got a credit of Philip Glass.
That would make a lot of sense because it does sound like a big stitched together loop most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. B-sides, man. It's like that Beatles song that's supposed to come out that they're using AI because it's from a demo.
Yeah,
And
and that's really sad because we discussed in a lot of movies, particularly like the Predator movies, how silence can really be the best
yeah.
background for a lot of things, and your killer is going to have some kind of a sound, a niche that tells you they're around, and that can be okay, even if it's just like a sound an everyday
Yeah.
object would make. And this movie just stomps all over that, which is really sad.
Yeah, and to that point, like, I don't really understand the flow of this movie. Like, it doesn't, I've talked pacing a lot. Like, the pacing's fine in the sense that, like, it doesn't take too long to get to spots, but like there are abrupt changes where you're like, wait, what? Why did that happen? Like, case in point, there's a spot where Candyman comes to Annie and he's like, "You're mine," and then she's at the jail talking to a cop in the next scene. It's like, what? And if you were to have seen the first one, Bill, I'll just tell you, there's an encounter that Virginia Madsen has, but it makes sense. Like, what they do in the next scene makes sense to why it's not just some random jump in setting and whatnot. This does not make sense, and I don't know what happened.
I don't either, and so I'm glad you told me that because I had the same thought. I don't know why everybody's got these torn up reactions and then they're on to the new thing. And like, I'm terrified beyond words, but I'm going to school and I'm going to go teach. Or
I'm terrified. My brother's in jail. Better go inspect my rundown house that's full of the unhomed trying to live.
yeah, quick shout out to husband Paul there for
Yeah.
going in on this deal and being, I don't know, not at all worried that like anyone else would be, that this abandoned property is not going to be full of transits. Now, I say him because Annie's clearly got the head up of steam to do this. And whether the roles has been reversed, the other spouse should really be on the other side of this going, not safe. This is not a
Yeah.
safe thing to do.
And then when they do run into people, they're like, "It's cool. We're just gonna go look around in the other room."
Yeah,
And
But they
okay,
but they split up. He
yeah,
lets her go, and then she just goes in another direction, and he goes there. I would not be splitting up with my wife if I found myself in this situation, or my
no,
friend, or whoever I'm with. I don't care if it's
no,
daylight or not. It's just really strange, and it's just like, are you concerned? Because he's cracking jokes, and she's kind of serious the whole time. She kind
the
of goes
whole
somewhere
time.
between driven and just terrified and then sort of like mildly curious. I don't know. It's a really weird vibe and it really doesn't help, like you said, with these edits. It just jumps logically, locationally, and emotionally kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Well, what's your other artificial sweetener?
Well, kind of playing off that, well, you'd mentioned earlier about the New Orleans setting being kind of cool, which I would agree with. The setting is pretty cool, but there are a couple of things. And the New Orleans part comes in on the backside of this. There is a voiceover in this movie from an entity called the Kingfish, who appears to be what I thought a radio personality.
Uh-huh.
And he's part Wolfman Jack, part McFoley, I think is what I got
Yeah.
out of it. And
Yeah.
he kind of does the thing with, come on, babies, it's Mardi Gras, and we're going to do it. But the Candyman out there, and he going to stick you with a big hook if you not care. Like that weird type of delivery. And he says stuff through this whole movie, and very little of it makes sense. It's mostly just him talking about how all the sinners got their day off and it's time to party because you're all going to hell and this is bad and the Candyman's doing this work and why can't he just chill out? But it's done in that weird vibe, and
Yeah.
then take that, stick it over top of that music that's playing all the time, and then of course Mardi Gras is going off all around it with this setting. And I keep thinking this movie centers around voodoo, Like, is there's going to be voodoo? And is this guy, like, when this is all said and done, will Annie get to meet the kingfish and the kingfish is going to be the guy running the show? Like, I'm trying to get the internal logic down to what I think's going, and it's not. We go all over this town. We see all this amazing rundown, dangerous areas that look great. And this dude who is just this weird on-site DJ spinning some records at Mardi Gras that nobody would be able to hear. And he's
No.
not a threatening looking person. He kind of looks like a guy cosplaying as Bluto from Animal House who's DJing this party. And none of this makes any sense. And it doesn't matter to the story. He's not an impact. Mardi Gras itself isn't an impact.
Nope.
The place they're at isn't an impact. And we spent a lot of time looking at it. And then it just turns out that it's scenery. And it, like you said, it's awesome scenery. But it doesn't do anything. And I'm thinking, boy, just cut him out of this movie altogether. And if you just didn't lead me down this weird Mardi Gras voodoo path, what does happen in this movie I would be more comfortable with, because I wouldn't have had the wrong impression from the very start of this movie about what I was going to see.
Totally couldn't agree more. My last artificial sweetener, Bill, and call it nitpicky. We've talked about this film being a little slow, weird choices, yada yada yada. But like, I also think this happened in the previous one. But there's like spray paint and a scene in the flashback where they say sweets to the sweet, which is just awkward phrasing. But then there's the time where Annie figures out the guy who knows how to bring down Candyman, and he says sweets for the sweet. What is going on? Like, why is it two different phrases?
I don't know. Have we learned nothing from the Necronomicon and Evil Dead? You've got to get the words right, man.
It got to get the words right.
Yeah, I mean, that was weird. And plus, using those phrases in a movie called Candyman, I can't say that I thought this was going to be about some deranged candy salesman. I didn't think that. But because the sweet part is like the honey they poured on him for the bees to sting him to kill him, like, that's really low key in how this demon works. So it's almost like you don't even need to call that. I guess if he'd done
like the
anything,
kids made fun of him and called him Candyman once they slathered honey on him, but like the sweets to the sweet doesn't matter.
No, it'd been like, say the situation's reversed, Rob, and I'm in the Candyman's position,
and you're slathering honey on me.
No. I'm not gonna put you in that position.
I watched that Jerry Springer Break clip the other day, so it was on one of those VHS tapes. So
well, you got some good watching ahead of you. But no, like, if that had happened and say, like, okay, you've been mutilated and left for dead, and your killer walks up at the end and sticks a Tootsie Pop in your mouth, would it make sense to just call to be just walking around every time going Tootsie Roll, caramel, chocolatey, or killing somebody and then going, how many licks does it take to get to the
Tootsie
center?
Pop,
It doesn't.
Tootsie Pop.
It doesn't link. Yeah, it doesn't link together for me. It's kind of weird.
And once again, Bill, when you watch the first one, Candyman has a much better like reasoning to be called Candyman, and like more than just this backstory. Yes, that backstory exists. And if you're going to use a phrase, don't like play with the phrase either. Like, get it down, have it make sense, and let it be there. Right. But it's just weird when it doesn't make sense that much to begin with. Sweets to the sweet, sweets for the sweet. And then it's like rarely used, and we see it 3 times in the whole thing. And once it's not said the same way. Like, why? Very awkward. Bill, we should move on though, because we got to start bringing this puppy home. We got to bring our jack-o'-lantern full of candy back home with our final segment, Gobstoppers.
Love it.
These are the amusing moments, Bill. We're going to just bang through our amusing moments, and then we're going to rate this puppy. We'll figure it out from there. I'm going to start. Tim Taylor from Home Improvement. His younger brother on the show is Ethan in this movie, which I think is hilarious because I don't know him from anything else but Home Improvement and Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. I'm sure he has been in plenty William O'Leary, but I don't watch SEAL Team. I don't watch NCIS. I don't watch Rizzoli and Isles. So I only know him from Farewell to the Flesh and Home Improvement. And he's not even that great of a character in Home Improvement, but he plays the same character in both. How about you, Bill? Any gobstoppers up your alley?
Well, it's funny that you picked that because he was very familiar to me in one specific role, especially. He is Pete Dead Meat Thompson from Hot Shots, a movie that I saw
Whoa.
in the theater for my graduation after school party. And the fact that he played a character called Dead Meat and now is playing a movie in a Candyman horror movie was great. As soon as I saw his face on screen, jumped right out me out loud. It's dead meat, literally and figuratively. He's dead meat.
I totally remember that now, Bill.
Yep.
I
got a great face for that. I didn't remember the Home Improvement part because I didn't watch that much of that show, but I've seen him in a lot of things. But I find it super duper amusing that in this, what I think this movie tried to do a twist is he spends half the movie screaming and running around, shouting stuff from the first movie. The Candyman's coming. He's back. He's going to kill everybody. I've seen him murder it. And he's caught by the cops and they think he's the murderer. Your classic swerve in one of these things. And eventually there's that moment in the police department where the Candyman shows up and kills the guy next, and Dead Meat runs out the door and he gets gunned down in mistaken escapee gunfire. The cops think he's trying to run and he gets taken out, not by the Candyman. He has worked so hard. And
they
hard.
Even caught Invisible Candyman on film.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't go out like, saving his sister. I thought that's surely what's going to happen. And
he just sprints out of that police department, and that was that cop was not concerned about the paperwork.
No, he was not afraid. He's already got that paperwork filled out in his desk. He just fills in the name of who he's taken out, running out the front door. And I guess maybe I should be happy that the movie subverted an old trope of, I'm going to sacrifice myself for you. But he could have at least gone out in a blaze of glory. But instead, he just got taken out going down the stairs. And your last thought has got to be, what a pisser. Yeah. After all that,
God damn, I just wasted the last few days of my life in this boring wood room.
Seriously. I mean, what a terrible place. Another poorly lit police station for me to die in. This sucks.
And these cops have been harassing me. It's terrible.
Yeah. Apparently not really feeding him all that well because he don't look good.
Not at all. Dark circles under those eyes. Mm-hmm. Bill, my other gobstopper is a big one. For some reason, Annie becomes pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
We don't exactly know how that happens. Candyman just kind of like lets her and us know that she's now with child. And she's also related to Candyman, we find out. But it's not quite clear if it's Candyman's baby.
Yeah. I didn't get what the point of that was either, because clearly, the mom, Octavia, is telling her, grandchildren, and her husband. There is a sex scene early in the movie where they get it on. And I think after that, it's implied that it's her husband, Paul's baby. Paul, of course, having been eviscerated by the Candyman. So he's
Fisher
gone.
Stevens?
Yeah, your Fisher Stevens look-alike. Yeah, that's exactly.
Carhartt.
Yeah. But yeah, because you're unraveling the whole family history of the thing, which honestly, about 15 to 20 minutes into the story of this family, I figured out they're related.
Yeah.
You know, you live on an ex plantation, there's something in this has got your family linked.
Yeah.
And it's going to show up, which
There's
it
some real
does.
Thomas Jefferson stuff happening
Yeah.
here.
But that makes Annie, I think she said makes the Candyman her great 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 grandfather.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, why would you what? Why does he want her? How is he going to start over with her? Is he going to use her and then kill her? He wants the baby, but what's the baby to him? And
Yeah.
if he
Why
kills
does
her,
it do anything?
yeah, or where is he taking her? He keeps telling her like death is a release or something, and there's stuff after, but he doesn't say what it is. It's kind of a hot wreck of everything that's going
Very
on here.
amusing.
It's very amusing. It very much is. But yeah, and then when he said that, I had the same thought. He was like, "Well, is this not Paul's baby?
Yeah.
Did he do this somehow? And
There's
when?"
going to be there's going to be an investigation, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's many questions that, or I hope they're on one of your other Jerry Springer tapes because this was still on about those times. Maybe
Yeah.
we've missed the Tenant Candyman results of DNA test
But
episode.
to be clear, this is Springer break. So it's Jerry Springer at spring break. So you never know which direction it's going to go.
That's true. Well,
Um,
not a lot of mirrors at spring break unless it's the glare off a beer bottle.
that is very true. Bill, what's your final gobstopper?
Uh, there are so many, Rob. I just want to say for anybody that watches this movie, there are a lot of amusing moments. Don't think these are the only ones. And some of these amusing moments will carry you through the movie because
Yes.
you'll occupy your brain trying to answer them. But one of the main ones it's right at the beginning. The author Purcell, who's written the book about the Candyman, who is, I believe, a holdover from the first movie. His
Yeah, he's
character's
about the only connecting thing besides Tony Todd.
yeah. So I found that out. I didn't know that when I was watching it. So he writes this movie about it, and he's in the bookstore. He's doing the tour thing, and everybody's listening, and they're listening to his spiel, and he does the thing. They're like, "Well, do you believe?" And of course, he looks in the mirror and he starts doing the bit, and he has his little buddy next door rip through the screen, and it's a fake, and he's like, I don't believe, but this is real in the realm of this movie. This is the thing that happened. So did he think he was going to do that at every stop on this book
Yeah.
tour? And does that mean that this is the first stop on the book tour because he said the thing and the Candyman did show up and his book has a reflective cover on it? So there's no way that anybody that buys this book isn't snidely looking into it and saying Candyman 5 times, which means is Purcell like somebody who's giving a loaded gun to a baboon by giving them the word they can't say on a book with a mirrored cover that will cause him to what in the
Ape
hell?
will not Candyman ape, Bill.
No, what in the hell is going on here? I mean, I don't know. I was just left with just ridiculously no questions so much about the movie, but how this book tour would work in the real world that I thought my brain was going to melt.
Yeah, and it did. But we will form the pieces back in the brains, and we will continue on our journey of Robo-ween. But first, Bill, we have to rate this thing. 5 nights for $1. Give me that quick elevator pitch.
Oh, so ironic that we do 5 nights for $1 for this movie. But
Yes.
yeah, our rating system is kind of like the idea of when you went in the old video stores, you might see a rack up near the front, and there'd be a bunch of movies, might say something like 5 nights for $1. Throw your dollar down, get your movie, keep it 1 night, keep it 5 nights. Up to you how much you liked it. And this system is based on just this movie. Nothing you've seen, nothing else we've seen, no sequels, no other things in our series. Just you've put your dollar down, you've got Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, you've gone home, you put it in your VCR. You may or may not have said his name a few times, depending how brave you are. What are you going to do? You've watched it. How many of the 5 nights that you're allotted are you going to keep this movie after seeing it? And I think I'm going to go first on this one, Rob, because you get to go
Ooh,
first a lot. And this is your series, so I want you to end with it.
please.
Um, I had an amusing time watching this movie, and I have a lot of questions. There are some things that just don't make sense. And I don't always like for it to be like an out when we do this, but I can't say that I super enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it more after talking to you. What it did do was clearly prime me to want to now see the first movie, which I haven't. I had a feeling from the start, and now that you've told me, is a better movie.
Yes.
So, but I can't really give it credit for just that, as it should be graded on its own thing. So I'm going to keep it for 2 nights because I got my one hard run through, and then because it's Tony Todd, I want to go back and watch his scenes again and try and pick up on these parts that I've missed. And I think there's some good stuff here. I think there's clearly a movie in this sequel that would have been better than what they put to paper. I see the potential in it. I'm not going to watch it all in a row. I'm going to have to pace it out a little bit. So that second night is strictly a try to fill in the blanks before I text my buddy Rob and go, Rob, what the hell did I just watch? I can't figure it out.
Fair, totally understandable. Bill, I'm going to say that this movie has a lot of stitching. A lot of like, well, how do we just, like, what do they say? Like, it's always bad when you're putting something together to say like, and then this happens, and then this happens. You want to say like, this happens, which causes, or, there has to be the domino effect. This is just a lot of ideas put together. You could probably add the history elements to this to the first movie and get one good movie, because the biggest thing in this film that is a problem is that by the time we get to the kind of like small town theater performance flashback at the end of this movie, we've already been told what happens multiple times, not just in this film, but in the first film. So it's not like we're getting any new information. We're just seeing it play out. So not a lot going on here, but I do think I would keep it for 2 nights as well, because maybe I would like super cut something from one VCR to the other VCR with the first movie to try and pull the scenes that work well. But man, it really is getting delivered back pretty quick that second night, and we're gonna get Wayne's World or something.
Yeah, or do what I would do, which is based on what Tony said about this movie, and it made sense. This is not really a horror movie. He's right. It's kind of a weird love story that somebody has wrapped horror movie elements around, because there's not that much horror movie element in it. There's not a lot of slice and dice. There is some, don't get me wrong. But once they say that and you go back, you're like, this movie was clearly trying to tell an emotional story through this character, and it just didn't.
But trying to force Freddy Krueger into it.
Right. So, you don't put Freddy Krueger on the cover of your Lifetime video.
No.
And you don't put your Lifetime video and base it on Elm Street and go from there. So, yeah, just doesn't work.
Well, another incredible episode of Bill and Rob's worked. I'll tell you that.
Yes, fulfilling the promise of this podcast that even a bad movie can be fun if you share it with your buds.
Absolutely. And one of our biggest buds is Rob Adler, who edits and produces the hell out of this show. You probably noticed that we're releasing audio and video on the Patreon, everyone, and that is because we have such skilled hands touching all of the digital files. Please tell a friend so that we can continue to build up our patronage and give people the money they deserve for the work put into it. And Bill and I could potentially stockpile more DVDs for us to cover on this show for future seasons. Bill, it's great. I love doing the podcast with you. So thank you as well, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Robs.
Oh, no.
No,
all right, patrons, look for us next week.
All right.
What are we doing next week? We are doing next episode. I'm very excited about this one, Bill. We're going to be watching Soul Survivor from 1984. It is available on my Plex if you need to watch it.
I will
And-
watch it, and I don't know what it is, but you said 1984, so I'm in 5 times over. This is going to be right up my
Listeners,
alley.
if you have not seen Soul Survivor, I know it's been a bit of a slug. We had Fear.com. We had the sequel to Candyman. But Soul Survivor is a movie I have only seen once. This is one of the only movies on this list, Bill, that I have seen. And I guess next week I've also seen. But each one of these I've only seen once. But Soul Survivor is great. So I'm very excited, and we will all see you next time on Bill and Rob's in Excellent Adventure.